Virgin Media Shorts, championing undiscovered talent.
I am Joe Cadre, the Talent Development Coordinator at Film London, and I will be chairing this session. And I must introduce you to our amazing panel. We have a great panel today. Just to go through very, very briefly, this is Thomas Thirlwell, who's the CEO of Big Balls, recent winner of a Golden Lion at Cannes.
That's correct.
We have Michael Stevens, who is has 2.7 million followers on YouTube via Vsauce.
3.4.
Oh, it's gone up 3.4.
Yeah.
But is also a program strategist at YouTube, which is a sort of an employee of YouTube.
Right.
We have MJ Delaney, who famously made Newport State of Mind, but which went viral and led to many other great things. And I'm sure you'll be able to correct me about what I've just said, because you've got the eyebrows. You can add to that in a second. We have Nick Scott, who made, is it a
School portrait.
Lots of different things, but as far as this panel's concerned, made a school portrait which was nominated for a Webby and went viral, and which led to many other interesting things. And Simon Young, who works at Shorts International, but is also a programmer for London Film Festival, a shorts programmer for London Film Festival. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to start with one of you. And Simon, if you wouldn't mind starting off, if you could tell us how you came to be involved with the world of short film in general, and what it is that you do at Shorts International and for the LFF.
Well, the story of how I got working in short film is not going to be very helpful or inspiring. It was just complete luck. A notice board on a language school in Barcelona asking for someone who could speak languages to travel to a film festival with a company who were Spanish and needed someone with English and French. So I went with them, and it worked out quite well. And then I started working for them part-time, and then it became full-time. And then eventually I moved back to the UK and started working at a company called Shorts, which was a short film distributor. It's since changed its name to Shorts International, and we were initially set up to make money by distributing short films to TV channels, so that's selling individual films to TV channels such as Film 4 or Canal Plus or Arte, HBO, those kind of people. And we realised after a couple of years that it wasn't really a sustainable business model. So we kind of saw other ways of monetising shorts, shall we say, and we managed to get our short films onto the iTunes platform, beginning with the Oscar-nominated shorts in 2006. That's something we've done every year. The Oscar-nominated short films and animations are released, as well as many other short films. And we also have launched a TV channel called Shorts TV. It's not available in the UK at the moment. It was for a year on Sky, but it didn't work out. But it's available in about 6-7 countries around the world, including the US. Reaches about 20 million homes. And that has provided an outlet for the short films that we acquire, and also we acquire a lot more now because we're programming 24 hours a day on TV. So it's a platform for short films, and it's a place for them to go. And we think it's a great opportunity.
And apart from that, you're also working on the London Film Festival, programming shorts for that. And how long have you been doing that?
I've been programming shorts at London since I think 2007. That was kind of handed on by the previous programmer, who was a friend of mine. So that's it's a distinct job, but obviously there's a lot of overlap. I spend a lot of time watching short films. I go to a lot of film festivals, and I receive a lot of short film submissions, whether it's on DVD or Vimeo links and what have you. So it's quite handy that there is a crossover. I see a lot of short films.
But there's only two of you on the festival, isn't there?
There's two programmers at London Film Festival. Yeah, we're only at the moment programming six programs between us at London. It's not, shorts aren't really the focus of London Film Festival, but they're quite an important strand.
Sure.
Popular.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Simon. Nick, could you similarly describe how you came into filmmaking, how you came to the shorts arena?
Sure, yeah. I didn't study film at all. I studied something completely different. I studied economics at university, made short films in my spare time because it was fun. Came to London, was really disappointed with my job, but on the upside found a load of people, probably like all of you guys, who kind of want to make films that I'd been doing kind of on the side. And then I sort of, when my mates no longer, I've kind of ran out of kind of credit with my mates in turning up and being extras and stuff. You know, I started kind of, you know, taking it a bit more seriously. So I did a kind of part-time film school. I studied screenwriting, which was the big thing, which kind of helped improve my filmmaking. And then I just kind of started really, actually, and I was quite inspired by Straight 8. So that was a film competition which is made on one cartridge of Super 8, and you can't do any editing. It's edited in camera, so every film is the same length as the cartridge of film, which is 3.5 minutes. I remember going to a screening of that and just being really amazed at how I thought that much better the short films were than a lot of other short films that I'd saw. And I think it's a really good discipline. So I did that, and then I kind of was quite lucky in that one of my films, so my entry into that did quite well. It got into Cannes that year, and then sort of after that, I just started taking the whole thing a lot more seriously. And then I was just talking to Simon about it actually. When I first started, the only way that you could get short films seen was in festivals. So you know, you kind of made the short film, you kind of started printing out those DVDs, and then kind of sending them off. And I went to a lot of festivals, not necessarily ones I got into. Like I went to Clermont-Ferrand because it was the world's biggest short film festival, and I just thought I should probably go along to that. My film didn't get in, but it was in the market. And then I learned so much from watching the other shorts and meeting other filmmakers, and I really came back really kind of massively motivated to sort of do a whole load of things and really kind of make a load more stuff. So I carried on making shorts, but I kind of was a bit frustrated with this process of constantly entering films into festivals because it's quite expensive. You spend a lot of time doing it, and then so a couple of years ago I made a film called Big Society, and decided that me and the guy I was collaborating with, we were going to do something different, and basically we decided we were going to put it online because it was like a kind of quite a dark comedy satire on Cameron's policy about big society. It's got kind of ex-soldiers going around slapping youths basically, and we wanted really to get that out there to people so they could comment on it, and it was wanted to provoke a bit of a political response. And so a lot of people tell you don't put your shorts online because festivals rule it out. But in a weird way, things started changing for us because festivals ended up coming to us, so it did quite well. It got about sort of 10,000 views, which is not amazing, but there's quite a lot of people started responding to it and engaging with it. So I think that experience, and then finding out that was the route to going to festivals was really interesting. And then and then I made this short film called School Portrait, which was much smaller. I made it originally for VirginMediaShorts. And nothing happened to it at VirginMediaShorts, but afterwards it kind of went viral, and then a load of other things happened from there.
Okay, well we can maybe talk a bit more about School Portrait and what you did with it, and maybe a little bit about the Webbies and stuff like that later on. How about you, MJ? Could you describe how you came into the arena of filmmaking?
Yeah, I feel slightly fraudulent in that I've never actually made a short film in the traditional sense of the word, and I've never made anything that would meet the entry requirements of a short film festival, but I guess in kind of the more modern sense of what short filmmaking is in terms of YouTube and so on, which is a lot shorter.
Sure.
I've done that. I also didn't go to film school. It's become like an advertisement for not going to film school, but I did English at university, and same kind of story. Didn't really like my job. Well, I did like my job actually. I was working in magazines, but I can't work. I get very. I was working in an office and I was sort of bouncing off the walls a bit. So I went, I sort of just started doing freelance writing, and from there I went into, you tend to have to write about the same thing all the time. So I was doing a lot of fashion, was doing fashion weeks, Then from there I went into styling, worked for MTV and Disney Channel for a while, and basically was just on set, costume assisting, and was like, that person's job's way better than my job. And so, yeah, started making films in my spare time, like borrowed a camera off my brother, taught myself Final Cut Pro, and just started making like music videos for friends, like films for art exhibitions.
And how long ago was that?
That was in 2009. And then in like the summer of 2010, made Newport State of Mind, which we put up, and I think we put it up on the Tuesday. We were on like ITV News at 10 on the Thursday. It was up for 2.5 weeks before EMI Music Publishing took it down for copyright infringement. And we got 2.5 million views in that time. And then so it was like literally like 2.5 weeks of craziness, and then that was it. It was sort of over. It was a very nice but very brief foray into like having a successful film. And then after that, it was sort of off the back of that, was managed to sort of do it as a living, which was great. And then subsequently made lots of other kind of similar length web-based stuff. So for people like BBC Comedy and Funny or Die. But I was sort of, because I'd never been to film school and therefore I'd never done any graduate films, and because I'd never made any short films, it meant that last year I did a film for Channel 4, which was half an hour broadcast, and so it's like 24 minutes. And previous to that, the longest thing I'd ever made was 5. So I was like shitting myself because I suddenly had like 5 times the amount of film to make. And then off that, I've just done my first feature, which was like a jump to 90.
Wow.
So it's like this strange kind of like trajectory if you come the sort of web route, because it's very difficult. I mean, you're definitely an exception to the rule to get something that's longer. But I think it's changing as more people start watching TV online now. But certainly a couple of years ago, it was kind of like this sort of 3.5 minute rule where like people wouldn't bother watching it or sharing it if it was longer than that length. And also just because I hadn't been to film school, for me, like having the turnover was really good, because it's like if you made a shit film, it had only taken a month and like not many people would see it. Whereas like if you've invested 6 months of your life and a lot of your own money into a short film and it's awful, it's sort of like really disheartening and a waste of time. Whereas if you do like little films, you can kind of keep them coming, keep them churning, keep learning, because every shoot is different and every process is different. So you kind of, it's a good way to learn.
Can we just at this point be interesting? What was the connection? What was the phone call that made you go from a viral video to having your first commissioned job that maybe made you think, yes, this is a career, or this is something that I can earn a living doing?
Adverts is the simple answer to that, because if you do commercials, you can afford to do the stuff you want to do. And the truth of it is that like up and for quite a long way down the line, long form and features and shorts will be like, it's not lucrative, and it's often a very expensive hobby. So for me, because I do commercials, like I can afford to do the work that I want to do.
Were you already doing that kind of work before you did Newport?
No, I got that off the back of Newport as well. But it's like, as a case in point, like I've just done a feature film which took 8 months, which is actually quite quick for a feature film. Like we started it in September and we just finished it last week. And it's like I got paid less for that 6 months of my life than I do like my daily rates in advertising. So that's how it became a viable career option for me.
When is that film coming out?
We've got the buyer's screening tomorrow, and then we take it to Cannes the week after, and then it depends on, because it was funded by, basically when the Tories, that's the Film Council, they left like small sums of money in its will, so to speak, to various producers. Most of whom put it into development, but Damien Jones, who was the producer on stuff like Iron Lady, Kidulthood, History Boy, stuff like that, decided to make a micro-budget feature. So we made it on 120 grand, and so but it means we don't have any like backers, and so now we're just selling it to distributors.
Well, that's about the same budget as most of the Film London microwave short.
That was the kind of that was the
model,
scheme that made him believe that it could be possible.
Okay, that's great. You should tell us the name of the film at least.
Powder Room.
Powder Room.
There's a teaser trailer online.
Fantastic. So thanks, MJ. I'll come back to you. Michael, could you similarly tell us how you came to be in this world?
Yeah, of course. I studied neuropsychology at university, so I was like, brainiac. But then I taught myself Final Cut Pro because I was looking at what was going online, and I thought it was just so awesomely subversive. Obama Girl, do you guys remember this?
Yeah.
The girl in a bikini who was like, I got a crush. I was like, what the heck is this? There were rumors that Obama had made it. A guy did a little short called Shining, where he took The Shining and made it look like a comedy film. And I was like, how can you have that much power? So I taught myself Final Cut and started doing kind of goofy political videos. The most popular is called Hillary Clinton Farts. And I found her speaking and she kind of like swallows, and I put in a little, and then I watched the entire debate and I got clips of everyone else going and looking down, and then one guy in the audience going, and that's literally the clip. It's 28 seconds long. But I did like a dozen of those, and they became my online portfolio. I wasn't doing them, I did get a grant from my school to do it, because it was like political speech or whatever. But then the creator of Obama Girl in New York saw them and just hired me as a freelance editor.
Right.
So I would do little one-off, like viral video things, but also be a cameraman for their longer sketches. After the election, no one cared about political jokes, so I started a channel that I now run called Vsauce, which was originally about video games, and it became about psychology, what I knew better. And so now, every week, I'm producing a 10 to 12, sometimes 15-minute long episode of just myself explaining a crazy question. What color is a mirror? They're green, just a little green, technically. Last week I did, why do humans kiss? Isn't that weird? Like, who were the first people to kiss? Were they just being gross? You know? And this week it's, if you were born in space, would your body develop differently? So I research for a week and then produce in the YouTube studio here in London. And I do all my own editing and all my own writing and filming. And so yeah, we do about 2 to 3 million views per episode each week. And by we, I mean I just work alone.
So this has led to you to actually being employed by YouTube as well. You said that you were a program strategist.
Yeah, I'm also a programming strategist at YouTube. So I have a 9-to-5 job, 80% of which is just producing. But 2 years ago, YouTube bought that company that I was freelancing at. And I came along and they set up the YouTube Next Lab, which is just a bunch of strategists that sort of help learn best practices for online of all genres. Everything from sports to narrative drama to informative to comedy. What are some of the secrets? What can make things popular? And not just get views, but get people to subscribe and watch everything you make in the future.
So are you willing to divulge those secrets?
Yeah, well, for a price. No, there's no like list of 10 secrets. Every single thing is different. There are just some kind of questions to ask yourself. And thinking like a viewer, how would I as an audience member react to this? That's like the #1 success secret.
Great. Oh, thank you. Thomas, tell us a bit about yourself.
So I made my first and last short film when I was 10 years old. I filled my 3 action men's heads full of tomato ketchup and shot them off with air rifles, and then filmed that and slowed it down and showed it to a few of my friends, at which point it was clear that I was no filmmaker. The rest of my sort of teens going into kind of early 20s, I sort of focused in on trying to get a job in advertising, and I came out of university at the last sort of early 90s recession, and there was not many jobs out there, certainly no jobs in the film industry. So I spent the next 13, 14 years in advertising. And came out because 2 reasons. One, I felt that the world of advertising were charging for time but giving away ideas for free. And secondly, I met a bunch of guys who were running a business called Big Balls Films. And I love them as people, and I love what they were doing. And they had this kind of ridiculously can-do attitude, which I still like to think, even though we're a little bit larger today, we still have. And it's our creative director calls it thinking by jumping. We kind of see stuff that we want to do and we get on and do it. And we don't really know where it's going to go a lot of the time. And I think that that is an inherent spirit in young filmmakers. I would like to think if I could draw a parallel, if the Action Man parallel didn't quite work for you guys, hopefully this parallel does. And that's how we built our business. We formed the company in 2006. Year after, or around the year that YouTube was formed, and a couple of years before sort of Facebook broke into kind of common consciousness. But we realized with the advent of YouTube that there was a different playground in which we could tell stories. There was this thing called the social internet, which meant that we could tell those stories and connect audiences to those stories. And rather like MJ, we along the way have paid the bills and kept the doors open by doing commercial work, but always at the same time trying to create projects for ourselves that are kind of, I suppose, big balls staples, original ideas that we've just wanted to put on screen. And that could be anything from a sort of seminal web series that we did on a social network called Bebo. Some of you may be too young to remember Bebo, but we did a show called Cape Modern, which was a sort of pioneering kind of. It was the first time I think I sort of read the headline, you know, this is the death of TV, because we created an online series that 67 million people over 2 series watched, and it was tapping into that kind of early Bebo audience whereby your average 12, 13-year-old wasn't really watching TV. They were kind of sharing stuff online, and Bebo kind of offered that place to kind of put films up and series up. So we did Cape Modern, and you know, literally were making it up as we went along, to be honest with you, because no one had really done this before. And the most interesting part of doing Cape Modern was we had a direct relationship with our audience. So back to Michael's point, we had to behave and think like the audience. It wasn't just good enough to just put films up and see how it went. And then kind of accelerating or speeding through the rest of Big Ball's history. Every year after that, we kind of were known as the guys that kind of made films and distributed them online. So we did sort of 1 or 2 big sort of multi-platform or web series every year. We did a show in 2009 that was BAFTA nominated called Who Killed Summer, which was like a real-time sort of festival drama series. And you know, there was big stuff and then there was small stuff. One of the projects that, you know, I always like to talk about, which was around the advent of Kickstarter launching. A lot of people were asking us, did we know anything about Kickstarter and was it a good way of raising money? And quite frankly, we didn't have a clue. So we thought, let's raise some money on Kickstarter and see if we can make a film. So we ended up making a short film called Buying Back the Bombs, whereby we flew to Laos and told the story of this enterprise, which was basically clearing unexploded bombs that were dropped on Laos during the period, 6-year period post-Vietnam. It's the most bombed country in the world, and yet has never been involved in a conflict directly. And we thought this was a really interesting story. 2 girls from New York were basically collecting up all of this unexploded kind of bomb material, melting it down, turning it into bracelets and selling them online. And we just thought it was a fascinating story that was one that needed to be told. So we went out to Laos, we cut a short film. Sorry, I've skipped the Kickstarter bit. We put up a little teaser film saying this is the film we want to make, went on to Kickstarter, raised 10 grand, went out to Laos, made this film, and then kind of plugged it in. Once the film was made, then sort of plugged it into the audience. So we published it online and then started to connect to kind of blogs who we thought we were interested in this, little interest groups. Got picked up by a number of film festivals. It was shown at a TED Talk, and ridiculously, the medical journal, The Lancet, then did a story about Big Balls' film, which is, as the journalist said, I'm pretty sure this is the only time I've done an interview with someone from a company called Big Balls.
That's fantastic.
So, and then just, sorry, bring it right up to speed.
last year we won the first YouTube Originals commission outside of the US. We are now running a football channel called Copper 90 that we work with young filmmakers to create documentary series and short films on. And we have a number of new channels that we're going to be launching over the next couple of years. And it's sort of set the course for the future of our business, which is very much about creating films and distributing them online. And back to my point about advertising, giving away ideas for free but charging for time, owning those ideas and treating them like your own media properties, and extracting the value, you know, once you have an audience on side that is trusting you, is the way forward for Big Balls.
Fantastic. Wow, okay. So I've got a few questions here for this panel. We've got half an hour to squeeze them for information about stuff. I just wanted to quickly look at the audience and gauge where you're at. Who here has made a short film? Okay. Who here has made 2 or 3 short films? Right. Okay. So we're already moving on. And which of you have entered gone down the festival route with your short film? Okay, fewer of you. And which of you have put that film online and tried to launch it online? Slightly more of you. Okay, that's really useful information. Simon, I'm going to start with you because we started with you earlier, and also because you're sort of the panel representative of the festivals. There aren't any other people here representing festivals. I know this is a bit of a cruel question, but why shouldn't you put your film online?
The festival route, I guess, is still considered the more traditional outlet for short films, although after a quick straw poll, maybe it isn't anymore. But I think the festivals are still a very valid place to show a film, and there are many benefits of being involved in the festival circuit. Online can, although it sounds like this isn't always the case, but usually I'd advise people not to put the film online if they're going to put it into film festivals. For example, London Film Festival won't show anything which is already available freely online. And there are also, if you're aiming for the stars, then the Oscars is a similar situation where if something's freely available online before it qualifies, then it won't be eligible to qualify for the Oscars. Although last year there was a film which, as soon as it was made virtually, it went online. I guess it must have won something almost simultaneously, and that was called Fresh Guacamole. And it's a sort of 90-minute pixelation animation, and that you know, there are always exceptions to the rule, and somehow this film was. But generally, I'd say, yeah, put it online, but maybe not the first thing you do. Okay. If you want to do festivals, and what can then follow on from festivals is, you know, more festivals. You get into one, you'll get into others. You might win an award, you might qualify for BAFTA, you might qualify for the Academy Awards. Next thing you know, you're shortlisted or nominated for an Oscar, such as Sharon Coleman a couple of years ago, NFTS, badgered. It's just a very short animation, ended up getting nominated for an Oscar. She goes from the NFTS to working at Pixar, almost, you know, one step after the other. So there is a benefit to following the traditional festival route. Obviously, I understand it's not for everybody, and I've got nothing against films going online, but I'd say don't, you know, leave your options open, at least at the beginning.
For the uninitiated, why is it that films that have already been seen online are not valid for entry? And is there a need to kind of be more flexible around that?
I think it's just simply that you don't want to be, you know, duplicating content, if you want to use that word, that's already been seen. It's just simple as that. You want to offer an audience that are paying money to come in something that they haven't seen before. Yeah. I think it's pretty simple. Although more and more festivals now are looking at using online simultaneously. So like, I know this year London is intending to make some films available online at the same time as the festival itself. So obviously they're keeping up with the game a little bit.
And what do you do sort of post-festival to kind of help, because every filmmaker wants their films to be seen and to be seen to the widest possible kind of audiences. What do you do aside from the accreditation of the film festival and the award itself? Do you then help the filmmakers post, having sort of kept it sort of closed, do you then help really kind of launch it afterwards? Because that would make more sense to me to then, once you've kept it closed for that festival audience, to then try and get it out as much as possible. So there's almost a distribution and launch benefit.
Well, I have no ownership of any films that are still doing festivals. That's not something that, submitting to festivals is not something as a distributor that I do or as a programmer that I do. So as a distributor, I'd be interested in seeing a film that has had some success at festivals, because that is a validation for me as well that other people like it. So if it's selected by festivals, it wins festivals, then audiences are going to like it, and that means it's useful as a distributor because I may be able to sell it to broadcasters, and maybe able to put it onto iTunes. Amazon now have a very similar download to own service to iTunes in the US anyway. And then at the end of the day, the last option is our own Shorts TV channel, which is a very sort of democratic platform in that we buy hundreds of hours of short films rather than the bigger broadcast used to cherry pick one or two, but we will take as many as we can get our hands on because we're broadcasting 24 hours a day. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but once films have, I would say use all your options, use those first, and then last thing, put it online. Obviously, there are exceptions. There is in everywhere, isn't there, really?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Simon. We'll come back to you maybe about talking about the iTunes, what with Shorts International programming iTunes, and I'd be interested to know what kind of shorts and stuff. Maybe never think about that. Nick, you engaged with the Webbies, which is, maybe not everybody knows about the Webbies. I wasn't aware of it actually until School Portrait, until you started emailing me, or your colleague Michael Berliner started emailing me saying, look what School Portrait's doing, look, it's involved with the Webbies, and I didn't know about that. Does everybody else know about Webbies? Do you know what the Webbies are? Put your hand up if you've heard of the Webbies. Okay, some of you, sorry. But it's a really big thing in America. Can you tell us some more about it?
Yeah, and to be fair, I didn't know much about it before we started thinking about it. I think so. The Webbies is supposed to be the Oscars of the internet, and there are rather kind of lots of different categories, but it's about achievement in kind of website design, functionality, and there's different components for sort of online sort of video content. So there's like a comedy section which is kind of dominated by sort of funny or die sort of college humour, that kind of stuff. And there's if you haven't checked it out, I'd encourage you to go and have a look. Just because some of the content on there is really pretty inspiring in terms of design and also in terms of the films. So when School Portrait went viral sort of in December, it was sort of similar thing, not quite with your numbers, but sort of when all of that happened, what was, you can have a look on the sort of Vimeo page and see where, the geography of where the people are watching your film, and sort of it really kicked off in the States, and so we thought, well, why not give it a go? It was £100 to enter, which is the kind of, after a while, it's a similar thing with festivals, is that the cost of it sort of can add up. So I remember it was a bit of a toss-up about, oh God, the film only cost us £200, and we're going to pay £100 to enter this thing, and we don't even know whether we're going to get submitted. But eventually we did, and I'm glad we did, because we got nominated, and we were up against the Muppets and OK Go, and some other like huge, some Facebook sponsored things. So we didn't have a chance, but it was kind of good. It was kind of a good experience. It led to a load of exposure, which really kind of helped.
I think the film held its own pretty well, actually.
That's very kind.
Seen the competition at the time and watched it all. I thought it was really good. But that's interesting. You're bringing up the subject of online festivals, which is a kind of transition that we're experiencing. Say Vimeo has got an online festival, which I found extraordinary. I so enjoyed going online and seeing the sheer quality of the work that's available through the Vimeo festivals. Are there any other festivals or online festivals that anybody's aware of that compete with that level of Webbies, Vimeo?
The Streamies.
The Streamies?
Have you heard of them?
No. You sure
That's
you're not
got to
making
be
it up?
American.
No, they're more for regular content in the TV vein, less of best comedic performance,
Okay.
best host. They're more about the best show with a regular storyline or characters.
Okay, so that's sort of for more conventional content that happens to be streamed online.
Yeah, and it tends to skew really young, whereas the Webbies, in my opinion, tend to skew more toward, like, not what teenagers are, you know, as into. Like, it's
Right.
more about art and brilliant innovation, whereas, you know, I mean, just look up the Streamies, you know, and look
Sure.
at who wins. They're great, but they're a whole other generation.
Okay. MJ, I was wondering if we could talk a bit more about social media. Would you say that the Newport thing was something that happened to you, or is that something that you went out and actively pursued in terms of social media networking?
We got, which is always hugely unhelpful in this situation, so we just got ridiculously lucky. And I think, I mean, I once went on the media show on Radio 4 and on this very subject about like how you, I also was asked to do a TED talk, what makes a video go viral, where I was like, how the f do I write this thing? The first thing I said was like, if I knew the answer to this question, I would be a squillionaire. But it's like, I don't think there is a science. But when I went on the media show, there was a guy there from a company called the Viral Factory who they have made they've got this business which basically they seed stuff, and they have this idea that there's a formula of how to make it happen. I mean, I think you can certainly, if you've got a good film, you can certainly, I think there are ways of doing it. Having never done it, I can't say how it's done.
Okay.
But one of the things that I like about online is the kind of quality control that you get, because if someone doesn't like it, they're not going to share it. And it's like which is why, and certainly in like TV commissioning, I think it's kind of like this dawn of a hopeful new era, whereby it's no longer like, how the f did that get on TV? And the reason it got on TV is because it's like 4 Oxbridge students sitting in a room at the BBC deciding what the nation wants to see. It's like they're testing everything on online platforms before it gets anywhere near your telly. So it's like if they put something online and 4 people watch it, they're like, well, we're not going to commission this for a series. But I think it's interesting in terms of like the festival versus online question. It's like kind of, I think there's like, one of the essential differences that's being overlooked is the fact that festivals are very much like the end of a film process. So if you're talking about submitting a short to a festival, what you're talking about is having already made a short that you funded, and you've got you've got the money together, you've made it, and now you're taking it to a festival. And I think the advantage of online is that you can get commissions, and like you can get the budget to make your film. So if you go to film school, you have your graduate film, and you've got all this amazing equipment you can use. You've got access to a crew, and you've got access to a cast, and it's sort of like it's all there and it's made. But after that point, how do you generate a budget to make something of quality? And in my case, it was kind of, I could go to Funny or Die and with an idea, and they would give me money to make a short film, and then, or like a 5-minute film, and then I could make it, and then they would put it on. So it's kind of, if you're, it's kind of a different thing online, because you can actually get stuff made online, whereas festivals tend to be, once you've already made something, however you've managed to pull it together, then you get to the festival. And so it's kind of, you know how you said it's like the last thing you should do, in some ways it should also be the first thing you should do. It's a different ball game, I think.
Was that Funny or Die America?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's interesting, because I mean, not many people kind of think of, when you think of online, you often think of free.
Yeah.
You often think of very little budget.
Oh, they're very, very small budgets. But they're like people like BBC Online, Funny or Die, like Channel 4, they have small amounts of money that you can make. I mean, it's like, I'm still cutting it myself at home and still still shooting it on a 5D and getting mates to do it for free. It wasn't like I suddenly had access to like huge budgets, but you've got the money to do your art department and do your costume and do your, like, all the things that the transport and the lunch and stuff like. You've got that assistance there, which is great.
Thanks. Michael, is there anything that you wanted to add to that, or could you tell us a little bit more about how you build an audience for, or a sort of build an audience over time? And are there any strategies that you've evolved in the time that you've done this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the point about getting to test things out, and if it's totally terrible and you screwed it up, who cares? You'll do a new one next week because you're working in a shorter format. And at first I was doing 2 or 3 minute, twice, 3 times a week. Now I'm doing 15 once a week. But if I'm ever nervous that it's not going to work, who cares? I'm gonna have another one in 7 days, you know? And so what that means is that people are like, holy cow, every week there's a brand new episode. This is worth sharing. And if I missed them on my episode about what if the sun disappeared, maybe I'll catch them on the one about why people kiss. And eventually they're sharing it. And then you accrue an audience. So now I have 3.5 million subscribers, adding about 10 to 12,000 a day. And these are people who just find out when I upload a new thing. But I don't stop and I don't ever take a break. I've released a video every week for the last 5 years, since 2008. I have not made a video. And I think that's the key to the success. I could decide to wait 3 years and put together my like beautiful Why Do People Kiss 15-minute, you know, episode, or I could just rush it and give up on having a social life for a week, but then make something that I'm really proud of. And that episode has 2.5 million views as of the last 6 days.
What, the How Do People Kiss?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Why
seems
do
to.
people kiss?
Why do people kiss?
I know how they kiss, but I don't know why. I do know why now, actually. Well, we think we know.
One thing I think that's important is that with the commonality to some of this, I think is that for these kind of viral stuff, a lot of these videos are entertaining very quickly. So, and in terms of comedy, they have this YouTube golden 15 seconds where they basically say, if your film's not funny in 15 seconds, you're gone. And certainly in terms of my film, like straight away, as soon as you see your film, you know what it is, and you just you sort of sit back and enjoy it. And you can see, you know, you go into the stats and you can see people kind of trailing off. So, you know, if after 30 seconds people just, you know, are sort of signing off. So, you know, we should be clear that these are sort of quite audience-pleasing films.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going out there to make, if your thing is Wuthering Heights, then, you know, online and a kind of classic festival route, you know, and winning awards and getting artistic credibility is probably going to be, you know, more valuable for you than chucking it online, wasting that kind of premiere at a festival. So I think you need to think very carefully about the kind of filmmaker you are and the kind of films that you've made.
Yeah, it's definitely very niche and very comedy skewed. And if it's like, I always think like, if it's not informative, you've got to be funny. Like that's what people, because you're relying on people sharing stuff. So people, if you send it to a friend, you either want to tell them something they don't know that they think they'll be interested in, or you're going to make them laugh and brighten up their day. You're not necessarily going to send them like a harrowing piece of drama in the middle of their work day.
You'd be surprised. Yeah.
But it's, and similarly with the in terms of getting work commissioned online, there's a very like, it's very, because of the kind of, this idea that it's like this constantly replenishing platform of media, that it tends to have a very topical skew. So you kind of, you tend to have to engage with current affairs more than you necessarily would if you weren't kind of tied to an online audience or an online platform, which is something to think about.
Also, does YouTube and I guess Vimeo, does that also have a rating system where you can't show anything which is explicit in any way, whether that's violent or nudity or sexual content? The kind of freedom that you'd have in making a traditional short film, you'd have to bear that in mind. If you want to show it online, you can't include certain.
You can get away with quite a lot.
Can you?
Yeah.
On Vimeo, right?
Yeah.
YouTube is going to be pretty. I mean, YouTube has like algorithms that detect flesh in a film, and it's policed by the viewers.
Yeah.
But in terms of swearing and stuff, that's fine, really.
Yeah, but like harming animals or drug use and children, getting children to do inappropriate things, you can't do. Yeah. But
so you can't tell all stories.
No. If you want to tell a story that's going to probably get flagged, or flagged for over 18, people have to log in. Certainly, there are other places to go. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no one best place to put your work.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think it's that thing of like the internet and putting it online. It's like, it's very much like which festival is best for my film. It's like which online platform is best for my film, because there are a lot of like hugely successful websites now who like, and for Funny or Die, for example, you can put whatever you like on there because they'll put a rating on it, and if it is explicit, you have to click through, you have to confirm that you're 18, blah, blah, blah. And they'll take, if they think it's funny, they'll take it no matter how dark it is.
Yeah.
I think it's slightly dangerous as well to maybe just classify online content as sort of audience pleasing and sort of easier, quicker to turn around than the sort of high quality, short film. The output or the range of content that you can see online is at every single level. But the main point I wanted to make was, the internet is fundamental to the future of film, fundamental to the future of TV. It will be the way if you're not already getting it, your TV services and film services delivered using the internet now, it will be in the future. So I think that like with everything, you need to understand it. It's got to be part of your armory, and you need to have a complete command over it to be able to make decisions about whether you go straight to a film festival or whether you want to build an audience online. I don't see it as a quality threshold thing. I see it as a means of distribution, a means of engaging an audience, a means of getting an audience participating. So, the idea of seeing a feature film as it iterates across 9, 10 months or what have you, could be a series of short films that help build an audience for the eventual release of a feature film. So as I say, I think it's dangerous to sort of particularly categorise it by quality or whether it's audience driven or not.
I've just remembered that we were going to have questions, and I'm really sorry that we haven't given you as much time as I hoped. Does anybody have any questions for any of the panel right now? This person in the middle there.
I just wondered about the responsibility and the aftermath of the whole online thing, because it is audience driven. And do you have a sense as filmmakers producing so on do you have a sense of responsibility for your audience, and how does that affect you? So I know you've kind of gone in from different angles, but it seems like the festival route offers for people who kind of want to be filmmakers, who want to be not proper filmmakers, but who want a career in film and the freedom to kind of make what they want in a sense. And how does that work with being online? Do you still get to do that, or do you have what's the relationship there toward?
Could you say who that question is addressed to?
Just, I think probably everyone, but maybe you a little bit more and you a little bit more.
Okay, you might have to just summarise your question.
What's your personal relationship with the audience and responsibility to your audience, and how does it affect what you do, and in comparison to what you want to do, does it affect that?
I'll give a very short answer, which is we listen to our audience to help iterate and optimise the films that we're making.
Okay. Does anybody want to add to that?
I know some filmmakers, obviously, who do work very hard on getting funding for, dangerous word, serious film projects, which they intend to use down the traditional route of festivals, awards, TV, hopefully. But they also have other projects on the go which are specifically aimed at online and maybe much more succinct in terms of an idea, or maybe it's for an online competition. So I think you've got to be aware of both sort of avenues and use both. I mean, I'm sure most people who are filmmakers have got several balls that they're juggling at the same time, and it's aim for every target you can.
I also think, don't assume that your audience online is any different is a different audience to the audience you're getting at festivals, because I mean, if you look sort of top end at something like Prometheus, who did in the lead up to the release of that film, made a series of short films that went online to promote the film, and that, in terms of like the cast was the same, the director was the same, the quality control was like it was exactly the same, like standard production values of those films as it was on the feature, but they were smaller, they were web friendly, they were something that you could share, and like it was for a different format, in the same way that if you make a series versus a feature film, it's a different. But the audience, I think you've got to. If anything, it's just you know your audience better because you can click a thing and you see your stats, so you know that it's 20 to 30-year-old males that are watching it the most, and it's like that's really useful to know, because you know who's liking it anyway. I mean, traditionally people would pay PR companies incredible amounts of money to try and find out that information about who was going into cinemas, whereas now you just have it at the click of a button.
I think we've got time for a few more questions. There's loads of questions now. Have you got? Could you grab the mic? Pass it to the person behind you.
Hi. This is a question. Is it Simon? Hi. What's the selection process for the Shorts TV that you mentioned? Like, is it, you know, do they have to have, I don't know, been somewhere else for you to select them? Or?
Not at all. Not at all. You know, my job involves going to festivals and watching the films that are selected by the festival, but I would also spend a lot of time at any festival watching the films that aren't selected by the festival. What's best for us, and Shorts TV is not always what's best for a film festival. So our tastes may be completely different. So yeah, I receive DVDs and Vimeo links with passwords all the time, constantly. So the process is just send it to me and I will watch it. And then there's a good chance that, you know, we'd come back to you with an offer maybe for Shorts TV, or if we think it's got a real commercial potential, then for iTunes and for distribution to other TV broadcasters as well.
Okay, thanks. Next question. Is there somebody in the front here?
I can probably be heard without.
It's all right. Yeah.
I'll talk into it if you like. The question, it's putting your shorts online very quickly. Say, for instance, you had 20 subscribers on YouTube, and maybe you've got 260 friends on Facebook. From that point, where else would you put your YouTube link to just try and get as many views as possible?
I don't know who'd be the best position to answer that question.
You know, when I started, I had a list of 16 relevant forums and blogs and authors that I would send each thing to when I was done, right? And I'd say, hey, Andrew Sullivan, loved your last article. You're so clever. I just made this video about Mitt Romney. You know, and then I always made it personal and made it a joke and did something funny, or, you know, just to fit the tone. But, like, I really spent, like, all day on this, crafting up or submitting to forums for people who were into that one thing. If I was doing a short film on what if gravity disappeared, like a sci-fi one, I'd go to physics forums and just literally post it there, right? I mean, and aggregators like BuzzFeed and Reddit and 9gag.com are really what launched me to where I am.
Okay. Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say that's a big takeaway thing for me, is that just bear in mind that there's so much content out there. You're competing with so many films. You've got to take responsibility, and it's a big change to the film model now. Is that your responsibility as a filmmaker is to go out there and be kind of proactive about how you bring your audience to yourself. So I think first of all, I would say there's something called the YouTube Playbook that you can check out, and that takes you step by step, all the things you can do on YouTube to kind of help kind of promote your thing. I definitely think you need to go out there and think about what type of film it is, and then go out and kind of partner up. So if you're on Vimeo, look at the types of channel that has those kinds of films. Sort of go out and kind of do that. I think Twitter's really important. So we made a sort of comic sketch about football, and it involved sort of going outside the Arsenal stadium. So we tweeted at every Arsenal player, every ex-Arsenal player, Tottenham player, you know, and then, you know, we got retweeted by, I think, Jack Whitehall, and then that was it, and it was going mental. So just think about what other angles are there to your content. I think that's something everyone should do, and that actually presupposes even putting it on YouTube. It may be, if you made something really artistic, with artistic integrity that's more art house, Vimeo is probably more likely and more sensible move, because you've got a more kind of creative and kind of responsible community. It defaults to HD. So I think very carefully, and spend a lot of time about how you strategize for getting it out there to your audience.
To add to that, I think that the film itself is one of your assets, but you've got many other assets that are associated with the film, and you should be exploiting all of those different assets at the same time. It's different for say, you know, somebody who's creating something every week to you've got this one thing that you've spent ages creating and to blow it all in one go. So people do create. What do people think about trailers, for example? Sure, I mean, I was sometimes, when I first saw a trailer for a short film, I thought that was insane, but I don't think that anymore.
I think trailers are really important. The other thing I was just going to add to all of that is that whole sort of content marketing mix, I suppose, is and it's to do with the film being the asset. Think about the music and whether there is a kind of following to the person that's kind of scored it, or, you know, think about, you know, who else you could involve in the filming of it or the setting of it or what have you, so that there is, you know, there is a sort of principle that we follow on our with our YouTube channel, that, you know, think of every possible person that's on that set who could be helpful to the distribution of that content.
This person here?
Yeah, this is for MJ, but it is about actually what you just saying, music. You say your film was taken down by EMI. Did they take it down?
You can do it because if you have, it's a useful knowledge actually, if you have a video that does well online, other people will rip it off YouTube and repost it so that they can drive some of the subscribers to their channel. So you can, we used to call it policing the tube. So we were actually doing it to other people, but EMI can do it. So you have the ability as a YouTube user to go onto somebody else's page and say, I own this, this isn't theirs, take it down, and YouTube will take it down. But subsequently there has been a change in the copyright law, which meant that if we did it now, they wouldn't be able to do that.
Well, the second question was, yeah, how does that affect no budget filmmaking and the use of music and throwing it online?
Yeah, well, thankfully
they have on you straight away, you know. That's
yeah, absolutely, and thankfully they have now made that change in that there's a lot more freedom for parody. I mean, they did it. It went through because Newport was used as a big case study in the change in copyright law in this country, which coincidentally took place in Newport, where they were having all these conversations. But the first time they did one round in 2011 where they decided that they weren't going to change the law, because had we taken EMI to court that we would have won, which was sort of like totally useless to filmmakers anywhere, because who's going to take on EMI Music Publishing's lawyers if you're like kind of penniless 21-year-old living in London? And then they did a second round, and they now have they have changed it so that you don't have to do these sort of awful sound-alikes in order to do parodies. You can use the original.
But also the rights have changed. So previously, if you put someone's song on your video and uploaded it, it just got taken down. Now the laws have changed so that the owner of those copyright will have the choice whether to take it down or whether to keep it up. And then basically take the revenues from it. And what's happened is people realising that's incredibly lucrative. So now if they were doing it again, EMI would say, why were we taking down this video, which is getting 2.5 million views, which is bringing attention to that music? It's idiotic. Now they just take the revenue from it.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're going to have to call it a day. Thank you very much to our panel. Please give them a round of applause.
Virgin Media Shorts, championing undiscovered talent.